Sitecore Experience Accelerator, what is it? You guys developers or more marketing or a little bit of both, anything like that? More marketing, good. This helps with marketing. It also helps accelerate our development cycle. The creative phase essentially includes user experience discovery, some discussions on what things should happen, wireframing, colors of fancy stuff, you know, all of that good things. And the Experience Accelerator itself helps combine all of those so you can work within parallel, okay? And what Sitecore has done is integrated the editing function to reduce time to market by allowing content teams to design, assemble, and deploy web content across all channels, okay, essentially. There are many components that you can drag and drop and place into placeholders. You can wireframe right within the Experience Editor now. We can create multiple sites to show the multiple site scaffolding and essentially market the tool and what your idea is and kind of gather the ideas and create a quick way to display those ideas. That's essentially what the Experience Accelerator does. It also allows for team collaboration and decreases the time because you're working right on top of each other, okay? How does it accelerate it? One is brochure aware. It's your content production you can do right along with it. You can create an information architecture as well as your branding. You can put multiple brands, you can create different variants. You can determine which one looks better side by side, okay, of one single component. And you can do all of that without a developer. You don't have to run to the development team and say, hey, I need this to look like this. Can you make it happen? The actual content person or the UX designer or the graphic designer, the creative team can do that within Sitecore itself without having a development environment, which is great because we all know, one, development takes time and money, and it also increases the time to market or the time to sale. And we're really trying to get the sale or get your marketing team or whoever needs to make the approval less time to make that approval. Does that make sense? It also maintains and keeps the ability for system integration. It doesn't touch any of that. You can have heavy customization and you can still create your single page applications without needing to use the accelerator. But if you want to use it for those, you still can. It works together seamlessly. Okay, big broad headline. Sitecore Experience Accelerator enables agencies, designers, developers, and content teams to work seamlessly in parallel. Okay, and we have a graphic here that shows that the user experience at the beginning, you capture and define the user experience. That's what we do here. We have a discovery, we determine what is the best experience. Guys like Brett, they say, hey, the user should do this. Once that's captured, we begin the visual design. And if you see it's stacked on top of each other, because once some of that discovery happens, we can really try graphically designing some things while the user experience editor is inside of Sitecore creating like a wireframe, creating some functional items based on components that are out of the box. Okay, then we can do some front-end development. You can create actual themes and styles, all of the CSS, some additional JavaScript to go on top of Sitecore's CSS and JavaScript to help promote or push the idea of what this component should look like and what it should do. Then we can do some back-end development. You can reuse their components, configure their components, add the different variants, different options, different layouts, all within the Experience Editor. That may allow the development team to work in parallel with the UX team while still not having a development environment, okay? And all the while, after your visual design is completed or after some of the user experience is completed, you can start creating content. So that increases your development cycle or the timeline for the site to be ready for development dramatically, okay? Your content team can take wireframes, understand what content needs to be created, and start building out some of that actual data itself. Okay, you can assemble the pages and components.
Gilbert, is it suggesting with the purple that the back-end development is decreased?
Well, that is for, yes, it is decreasing back-end development if we choose to use the out-of-the-box components. There are more than 100. There are a lot of very common components like carousels and accordions and different things like that, navigation links. Those guys are right out of the box. We no longer have to go in and manually develop them in the back end. That's why it's a small amount. But it also allows for configuring those or enhancing them, making them work to our needs or whatever the client needs or whatnot, okay? Does that answer your question?
It does. Is it a good question?
It was a great one, okay? Wireframing. We all know a large part of the creative phase, a large part of the UX phase is the wireframe. We like to get that black and white in there. We like to see what the site layout would look like, help with the information architecture. The wireframing tools inside of the Experience Accelerator are pretty great. It gets away from that standard black and white. We have a tool that we like to use here in-house that allows us to send out the links and create security and show the client or show our development team what we're expecting and if this is possible, right? Try to prepare each other. Well, inside of Sitecore now, inside of the Experience Editor, we can drag a wireframe tool or drag a component onto the page and it'll show it as a wireframe. We'll get into some of that a little later too. Okay, and once that wireframe is complete on one page, that page and approved, that page can start being maintained or content can start being created towards that page, okay, while other wireframes are being created. So it allows that content team and the UX team to work together at the same time. It raises the out-of-box quality, okay, because everything is responsive. It has 3 different actual responsive frameworks: Bootstrap, Foundation, and 95. 960. I'm sorry, I added a additional number. It's greater freedom for marketers, meaning the marketing team does not have to be a developer. They don't truly even have to be a user experience expert. They can go in and play with the experience editor themselves and kind of think of ideas and market different components and tools to show someone that may not be familiar with Sitecore how Sitecore works. Okay. As I mentioned, wireframes are created directly in Sitecore. Okay, we don't have to do the traditional way of creating using a tool or even drawing out on a napkin, as some of us do here, to determine what the layout should look like. You would be amazed at some of the documents and things that we have received to approve and see, will this work, literally on a napkin like that. So
we use nice napkins.
Nice napkins, big, nice, big double bounty. Yeah, double ply bounty paper towel type good napkin. Yeah. UX designers can start building pages while the design is happening. Again, Brett's team can say, hey, I know I'm going to have a header here. This will be a 3-column layout. This will have a footer here. We're going to put a link, a navigation link on this side. We'll put some modules here, and they can build that up and move on, and then distribute that page itself over to the design team. The design team can then start creating the theme or the CSS around that, or well, not the CSS, but the colors around it, pass that on to the developers who then create the CSS. And all of that theming can be imported into Sitecore. And right at the beginning, right after the wireframe is done, again, content entry can begin, which again, dramatically increases the development time, or decreases the development time, or the time to market. Okay, more than 100 pre-built components to build your website from. Easy drag and drop toolkit. We all like to drag and drop things. We don't like to hunt things down. It's mobile first, so we talked about the responsiveness and whatnot. Then there are the component variants. Again, the variants are pretty big and pretty important because it allows for the reusability across multiple clients or across multiple ideas or multiple sites within a one branded site, okay? That way you can say, all right, on this page, I want to use the same carousel, but I want it to fade in and out instead of going left and right. Or I want an accordion, but I only want it to have the title and not the body. While on another page, that accordion, that same component will have the title, body, and an image, okay? That allows for that reusability. Elastic and flexible page layouts to extend your page templates, okay? Rendering variants. I've spoken on this. This is essentially what I'm talking about here. If you notice, we've chosen a carousel, okay? That carousel, or a page list, okay? We can have that page list be a carousel. And now these variants are all custom, by the way. This will take someone saying, all right, I want it to do this, or be able to do this, and or be able to do that. In this case, we want our page list to be able to carousel, or we want it to be static with just the details in an image first, or image and then the details, and then our show pricing options, our table of contents. All of those variants itself literally are just selectable, and they render based on Sitecore's component, okay? You determine which one you want to use, and I'll show you on the next slide how they can be kept side by side for approval.
So, G,
Go ahead.
so whenever, as a content author, you're going to build a page up, right?
Yeah.
And you go through and add a module, and you get a list of thumbnails to choose from, basically, right? And this is an experience editor.
An experience.
So does this replace that in some way, or is this purely for the design process?
Well, this essentially is the same thing. Well, you have your list of thumbnails that you get to choose from. You just choose one component though, and then from there, you can go in and change its variant. You can say, okay, on this component, I want it to display this way. Now, that way, it's predefined just based on conversations between the designer and the UX team to say, okay, what are the different variations of this component that may be possible throughout the site? Okay, and then those get defined, and we create what was called variant definitions. Now, a developer needs to be involved on that, simply because there are CSS and there are different fields that have to be created inside that variant definition in order for it to be selected in that variant list. Does that make sense? Yep. But once that is all defined, once those variants are created, they're there. You can import, you can export those variants, you can put them into other sites as time goes on, and they can be reused, okay? For example, that page list we were just talking about, this one has the carousel where this would fade in and out the pages. See this as a page thumbnail, where a page has an image and it has a title. Once, if you choose carousel, it'll fade and go to the next section or the next page. This page list is simply the details in the image, okay? Where you have your details and your image, and it's all listed out here in a static list of pages, okay? This one is just a thumbnail. You can make a thumbnail large or a thumbnail small. But all of these variations were predefined and thought of and saying, hey, there are multiple ways we would like to display a page list on many sites. Let's see which one is best. You can put them all on the same page at the same time as well and change the variant. Same component itself, but then you can take it to marketing or take it to whoever is approving it and say, which would you like? Do you like the static page list? Do you like your thumbnails? Or would you like that page list to carousel throughout? That way, you can get quick approval. You don't have to go to a developer to say, all right, they don't like the carousel, let's just try all thumbnails. Okay, they don't like large thumbnails, let's make it small thumbnails. That can add definite time to development, definite time to the approval of the creative. From Sitecore Experience Editor, they can approve it right then and there. That's why it's called Accelerator. You see what they did there? That's pretty clever, I thought.
Did they change the spelling of avocado too?
They may have. Avocado. Well, that may be how they spell it in the UK. I don't know. I'm not, or Australia. Yeah. You know, Sitecore started foreign. Yeah, Denmark. Take existing site and change the branding with a very limited effort. That's theming. Of course, we all know that multiple sites, if you have a multi-site architecture, chances are the sites themselves are very similar, minus the colors and the different brand. We have many sites or many clients that have a multi-site architecture, and the main thing that gets changed is the CSS. What the Accelerator allows you to do is create that CSS, import it, change a few classes, export it, and you have an entirely different site, many CSS files, but the same layout, same foundation, okay, same components themselves. Allows for that reuse of the templates and all of that good stuff, okay? They can have additional functionality, styling augmentation, and grid replacement. You can change it from using Bootstrap to Foundation if you would like. I don't know why you would do that, but
Don't hate.
I hate. Importing and exporting, as I was speaking of. Let's say we have our theme here. We have the CSS, JavaScript, images, and some flat HTML in there. We can export that out. We can distribute it. This image comes directly from Sitecore. They are a fan of Peter Griffin, as am I. Then you can import it into a different site definition on an entirely different Sitecore instance. Or within the same Sitecore instance, you can put it directly onto another accelerator site, what we call a tenant. And we'll get into tenants and tenant folders and that good stuff just in a few minutes, actually. Now, if you wanted to take one of the themes and just add an additional class that may come from an external CSS file or something like that, you can do it here as well. If we wanted to, for instance, implement a third-party a Facebook application or some third-party application that styles a frame, you can take your class, put it inside of one of the custom themes that's being used in the Experience Accelerator, and it'll be able to use that styling, whether it be for JavaScript tagging or JavaScript selectors. You can place it right within the Experience Accelerator itself as well. And that happens through the PowerShell toolbox. The grid system, as we mentioned before, 960, Bootstrap and Foundation. And we're all familiar with page designs, partial designs, and the good things that we like to use for development. The out-of-the-box components use those same partial designs, that same mechanism. They behave just like standard Sitecore layouts that a developer would create. So now, once you get into there, if you're not a developer, you can become one. I know Brett and Rich and Matt and team, they've always wanted to be developers, so this is their chance. This is how they,
Not true.
no.
That's what I wake up thinking every morning. Oh, I'm gonna be a developer.
But they're designed by business users. They're designed by the team that's actually discovering and planning what the layout and the look should feel like, okay? They can do it right within the Experience Accelerator using the partial design. Also, it uses workflow. So if something needs to be approved, if Matt creates something that he wants to present to the client, it can be approved by someone on his team prior to it being reviewed, okay? Those changes propagate across all pages that uses that same partial, okay? You make the code changes just like we would on our developer box within the Visual Studio or whatnot. That happens inside of the Experience Editor now, and those new developers don't even need Visual Studio, okay? Last part of the page creation, page designs, and partial designs, you'll see this is a wireframe, this is a header. We have a partial here. It's on a template itself. Inside of there, we have a component for a navigation link, probably a search up here, some things like that. Then we have the layout itself. You see this has a 2-column grid down with it's a 2 with 3 columns here. You can create all of those layouts inside of Experience Editor. You can change, you can remove. These are called splitters itself. So you can go as fancy as you would like without needing a developer to get in there and create the layout or add the styles or go back and remove a column and add it to a different row or anything like that. You can do it from the Experience Editor yourself, right within the design. I'm gonna do a quick demo. Yeah.
Resolution, probably.
Yeah. One of the first things I want to mention, though, is that you will need to make sure that you have PowerShell installed, the proper version. For the latest version of Sitecore, I believe is 4.6. I mean, you can get that from the Sitecore Marketplace. And if you notice in our content tree, we have what was called a tenant folder. A tenant itself is whether it be a prospective client, a current client, or a group of clients or a group of ideas. And beneath the tenant folder, you have tenants. I created multiple tenants. Just, you know how on those food shows, those cooking shows, they make all of the ingredients, they show you, they put it all in the pot, and then they put it in the oven, and they pull it right back out. This is what that is, essentially. Because of time, I didn't want to have to go in and actually create the tenant here. But what happens is PowerShell essentially runs a script. It has a Gulp file that it runs to create all of the sites and does it for you. So this demo site, all of the content beneath it, all of these guys get generated on the fly by the Experience Accelerator. I would do it, but we don't have that much time.
There's a dog in here.
There is.
Sorry, just kind
I get it.
I know.
Is there a dog supposed to be in here? Is it-
that was my real
I'll
question.
get questions.
So I'm right in the Experience Accelerator, right on top of a site that was already generated by the PowerShell script. You'll notice at the top there's a wireframe component, and this is a carousel. It actually works. It's functional. Okay, you can edit the image, you can edit the title, you can edit the text, just like you can on any component or any content inside of the Experience Editor. And you can also place new components inside of it. I double click all the time. And that's. Now, if you notice at the top here, these tabs, these are your content types and the component types that you can have. You determine when you run your site or when you create your site, when you generate it, what you want it to have. I selected all of them just for this demo, but you may not need context. You may not need a language selector or a site selector. You may not need any engagement components or anything like that, but just for this demo, we selected all of them. Navigation, you have your different breadcrumbs, your links, your link list navigation, of course. The only things that you don't have in here are custom business tools, things that you would need to talk about and determine, like a resource library and things like that. But for the standard things like a page list, pagination for search results, even search results, plain HTML, rich text editors. But the page structure itself, you have your splitters, columns, and the splitter rows. That allows you to create a new layout within the current layout. So right now I have a 2-column layout in there. I want to add 2 more columns. Let's call that a 6 by 4 by 2 or whatever the grid design is that you want. And inside of there, I can place an accordion. Oh my goodness, Brett. How much stuff do you search for? Okay, I'm gonna place an accordion. I've already created content. From here, you can go in and you can create more content. But there you go, select that guy. Hit OK. That same accordion item that's there comes here. Now, if I wanted to change this to be a different variant itself, I can click it here. Or I can add more in there. But the accordion itself, I can edit the style and the layout of this component itself. I can determine what the size is when it reaches the phone layout. I can determine what the size is when it reaches the tablet. I can also add additional styles onto there that are out of the box. If I wanted to take that content and align it right, I can do that. If I wanted to take that content and align it left, I can do that as well.
There's an
So
advanced
the-
tab at the top.
Mm-hmm.
What's under the advanced tab?
Yes, sir, Brett? Essentially just some of the same thing, but it looks like this is for the layout itself, saying hide or show. So if we wanted to show only for phones, show only for desktop, block, inline block, you can do that right there.
Yeah, I mean,
And
these are all decisions that as UX people and designers, right, we're already making these types of decisions in our tools like Acture or, you know, InVision or Sketch or Photoshop or whatever it is. It's just taking all those decisions and kind of putting it into Sitecore and allowing us to kind of, alongside development, alongside content, create these wireframes. And actually the wireframes are turning in directly into the Sitecore layouts and modules and stuff like that, instead of being totally static outside of that tool. So it's huge.
Open that up. Open that guy up. And this tab here, the Experience Accelerator tab, allows you to open the different partial designs. I can insert a partial if I needed to. You'll do it from there. I can change the theme from here if I need. Oh my goodness. Right now I only have one theme. Oh.
Double click.
Okay. I can add the mobile theme if I wanted to see it. I can add additional themes or my custom themes and they would automatically display there, and I could select them to just simply see what it will look like on this theme, and should this theme be used here or should this theme not be. Okay.
We don't have a whole lot of time left, but as far as the licensing goes, Gilbert, is this a separate license and a separate module that is installed, and then what versions are compatible with it?
So it's not a separate license. There are version differences. Sitecore 8 and up is where it's compatible. Now you want to get the proper version based on your Sitecore version, but 8 and up is where it is introduced and compatible. It is a separate module that you download and install from the marketplace itself, though. The configuration, the install process is just like a Sitecore package install that you would go through your installation wizard. Not much configuration at all with it. One thing that you do want to be aware of, again, is make sure you have PowerShell installed first, because PowerShell is going to generate all of the sites. PowerShell does all of the hard work in configuring for you. If you don't want to use PowerShell, then there is a lot of configuration that you have to go through. The other thing with it is I tried installing it on top of our Habitat solution, one of those. So if you have a Habitat or something that's built on Helix, right, then there may be some conflicts and some things that you will need to go grab from your WebDB and move back down to your master database. That would include certain theming and a couple of different layouts. I don't have a full list of what the conflicts were, but I'm still going through that. Also, insert options for the tenant folder. You'll need to update that to have the tenants. You'll need to update your content tree. So if you have a Helix environment and you install it on top of there may be some conflicts that you'll have to deal with. This is off of a base Sitecore install and is more for demo purposes. Also, the components and the renderings, those out-of-the-box ones, you can create custom ones to be included inside of here. There are, of course, 100 reusable, but if there is a business tool that gets used a lot, you can create one to be placed in here. And this is more from an agency standpoint. For instance, like a search results page or something that's not included out of the box here, you can create it and then include it and export that one. And you won't have to install your Experience Accelerator package on every instance. You'll just export this guy. You can export a tenant and all of its components and everything that's associated with it will come with it. Does that make sense? Okay. You guys got any questions? No? One?
Does this change how the experience editor itself works?
Well, no.
Old Experience Accelerator?
No, it actually works the same. It just enhances it to for the Experience Accelerator components. There are different things. Now your standard components, they won't have different variants. It's just the accelerator components that will. And then there are what they call composite renderings that have multiple partials inside of them. And you can go and modify those on the file system if you would like. And then the components that are associated with an existing site, we can actually make them accelerator components by adding those partials to, or creating a component inside the tenant folder and adding those partials there. Okay, so no, to answer your question, no, it doesn't change. It actually just enhances it. And you get most of your stuff from that Experience Accelerator tab. But you still get your same presentation, your same layout, details. I'll reload. Just so we can see that. You still go and edit the associated content and publish from here and all of that good stuff. So it definitely helps increase efficiency because half of the work is done for the developer and it's done by now the marketing or UX team itself. I don't know why it's not showing. Let's do that. Yeah. Let's go there. So those guys, you see them now.
For email campaign manager?
That's a good question. I don't know, but I can definitely look into that. I know Campaign Manager has its own interface when you're creating your own layout and template. I have not seen it. It may be great though. But your grid, all of that good stuff, you can do all the details and control properties, have it, everything, right on the details of the page. So each component also has rendering parameter definitions so that you can go in and modify based on what component you're on. The accordion I chose has this swing. These are different functional variants. So you have different variants on style and theming as well as functionality, okay? So if I wanted my accordion to be elastic instead of swing open, I can choose that. If you can open multiple, can toggle. Essentially, they tried to create everything for the standard components that you see on a website and the different functions that that component may have, try to bring it inside of the rendering parameters to give the marketing team or the UX team more flexibility without having to rely. Yeah, yes. You can definitely extend those yourself by just going down into the, inside of presentation, let's move this over a bit. Oh, and one thing, if you notice, I'm under this site, under this tenant here, and each one of those guys have their own presentation, own data, because again, you can determine what renderings you want, okay? And those are the tabs that we saw across the top of the presentation details when we were placing it on the page. I chose everything, so if I wanted to extend or add, I can do that. Okay, based from the template itself here, or I can create a custom one and add it myself there. But let's get out of that. Let's go to the variants and the partial designs, or rendering variants. So my page list, or you have that. You can just add them in there. Where's it? Oh, there's a search results one. So this one here has 2 rendering variants. I can actually add a different rendering variant definition here. Go in and say, hey, I want it to be, there aren't many different ways I can display results, but if I wanted to do it side by side and a 2x2, I can do that. And what I would do, I'll create it, then I'll add the proper fields on there. Just like these guys just have the title, this one just has the title as well. But if I wanted to add a custom CSS class, you'll click on there. And if I wanted to put a column span for column XS6 so that on small it shows side by side, I can put it there. Does that make sense? Okay, I think I'm complete if there are no more questions. We will have a more usable demo site for this if you guys want to just touch around on it, and feel free to email me any questions that you have or place them within our forum that we're spinning up and on our Sitecore chat on the Slack channel. Okay?
Awesome, thanks, Chief.
Thank you guys.